Welcome to this latest Leading with Purpose podcast. This week, we've got Professor Claire Ozanne, who is Vice Chancellor of Liverpool Hope University. It is a fantastic institution. And in a sense, that's not just my view, that's the view of the students who are there. And Claire, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. I've been really looking forward to this discussion, not least because we talk about social mobility, but Liverpool Hope is literally an institution that is delivering social mobility and understands how to do that. But before we get into your journey and the organisation a bit more, let's start with the National Student Survey results that just came out. And I mean, just some fantastic results on how you support your students to succeed. Tell us a little bit more about what it's telling you as the leader of the university.
Well, thanks very much, Justine. And it's a real pleasure to be able to talk with you and to talk about Liverpool Hope University, but, which is a really special place. And I'm really privileged to lead as Vice Chancellor here. And you mentioned the National Student Survey, and that's really important for us because it's our students telling us what they think about the experience we provide for them, from what they learn in the classroom, how stretching and challenging that is, the resources we provide in the library, in the labs, the teaching, all the way through to the support that they get from our professional services staff, and whether they feel they can have a voice in what we do here at Hope. So it's quite comprehensive in that sense and reflects on the whole of the student experience from when they start with us either in foundation or first year. And all sorts of things can happen in a university and in a student's life in that time. So that they're reflecting back on their whole experience and telling us what we're doing really well, also the things that we need to do better on in their sort of free-form text, which we read really carefully. But we're really proud that students are telling us that the support that we give them enables them to be confident and to feel that they've gathered the skills that they need for their next stage in life. And so really proud for the staff here at Hope because they've worked incredibly hard with the students to achieve that. So in 2025, fourth in the Northwest, and top in quite a number of the metrics, and particularly student support. Now, support can sound a little bit like it's something that we have to go in and fix. And I suppose we like to talk a bit more about empowerment. What we're doing is enabling students to overcome some of the barriers they've got in their lives, to enjoy learning, to become lifelong learners. And so it's support in the sense of bringing out of them the very best that they can achieve.
And I think, I want to dig into more shortly what Liverpool Hope's sort of ethos and tradition of social justice is all about. I think what's also interesting that people tend not to talk about, but this environment that you're creating for them is also the environment that we want to see in the workplace and is an environment that employees thrive in as well as students. And I think in showing what good looks like so clearly to students, actually, you're also helping them become people who know what they need to see in a work environment too. And as they progress in their careers, as they will do, actually, I think in a sort of indirect way, you're helping to improve the workplaces of the future and giving them a sense of what kind of support they'll need to be helping to put in place when, they become leaders, as many of them will go on to do. So it's really, really interesting. But Claire, let's start perhaps with you and your role at the university. As I've always thought, I guess most people don't go to school thinking, I want to run a university when I grow up. So tell us a little bit about your journey and in a sense, when that passion for being in higher education and matching that up with Liverpool Hope, just tell people about how you end up where you are today.
Yeah, I grew up in a household that really valued education. Both my parents were teachers, but came from families themselves that were either working class or a really, really modest means. So education was key to their social mobility, although they wouldn't have used that term. They talk about getting on in the world or making the most of your talents. And certainly what my parents did was, with their modest income, was to put a lot of that into my education, my brother's education, either in school or outside education. And that gave us a passion for learning. And what I really want to ensure that our students have is that lifelong learning, that passion for learning, for being flexible, for picking up new skills in a changing world. But I also think, perhaps even more importantly, both my grandparents and my parents had a really strong sense of responsibility for contributing to the community,
Mhm.
whether that's the community of the family or the church community or the broader local community, that sort of sense of service and using the talents that you have to serve the community. And I think that's really shaped who I am today and my values. I went to university to study agriculture and forest science.
As you
And
do.
then,
That's a bit of an
as you do,
odd choice, some people would think. How come you end up doing that, Claire?
do you know, again, it's inspirational teachers. And I think this is a sort of theme really here at Hope, that our staff really inspire students. I had a really inspirational female biology teacher
Mhm.
at O level. Goes to show how old I am. I just thought she was a really interesting person. I thought, I would like to be like that, with lots of interests. And then I went to university and had a really inspirational tutor who had a real passion for the little things of the world, the insects.
Mm.
And I developed a sort of interest in that and became an ecologist, and was fortunate enough to work in all sorts of parts of the world, Africa, Australia, Guyana, working on projects where I got interested in how people use forest and how that impacts on the biodiversity. So
So
again,
I
comes
guess,
back to people.
yeah, I guess I was going to say, so I guess, you're almost ahead of your time maybe if you're doing your degree now, maybe it would be called ecology, and forest specialization. But I think what's interesting is how, so you go into this, but then kind of almost instinctively understand that it's shaped so much by the people who are also there. And so, yeah, it sounds like you then start to pivot back in a sense to that base of people and talent.
I think that's right. And throughout my career in higher education, um, that's really been shaped by commitment to widening participation and that sort of equity of access and achievement in education. So I've worked in a variety of roles across higher
Well,
education.
hold on, Claire. We jumped from those really interesting roles that you had in Africa. So you've done this fascinating degree. You
Yes.
then literally go out and do field study style work, really practical career is building. How does that then kind of translate back? Is it a research agenda that you then come back to the UK and how do you end up doing the sort of academic route in the end?
Well, I was doing that really alongside my role as a lecturer in
Mm.
the university. And
Mhm.
so bringing what I learnt about working with people, but
Yeah.
also working in interesting environments around the world and challenging environments back into the classroom, so that I was able, I think, to convey that passion that
Yeah.
had been conveyed to me.
Yeah.
I've seen this insect, I've been
Mhm.
up that tree, I
Mhm.
know what it feels like. And that
Brilliant.
sort of genuineness in the classroom, which a lot of our staff brings through their experience in research or in industry, I think really translates into being able to make those things quite real and tangible for students in the classroom.
It's honestly, it's fascinating. So you're fired up when you're at school, you think, "Oh, I want to be like her," and you literally end up being able to do maybe for higher education, give that same putting passion into people about all of this. So at this stage then, yeah, your academic career within higher education, has really got underway. And I guess it was sort of steps after that to where you are now.
Yes, that's right. It's a question then of bringing together groups of people to deliver on projects to support students, really thinking about then some of the barriers that some of those students in the classroom might face in terms of following their passion, but
Mhm.
also in terms of the contacts with business and industry that they might have or not have, depending on their background, and thinking about how we enable them to make those contacts and grow and develop those skills through the teaching that we offer in the university.
And so let's come on to Liverpool Hope, because I remember when I came to university and we launched the impact report. I mean, it genuinely is inspirational to read. It's, I think, it's a special place, actually, as an institution, I would say. And I think perhaps it feels a bit different maybe to some other universities in that maybe it's a bit smaller. There's a sense of community around it that I think comes through very, I mean, very, very strongly. But Claire, maybe talk to us a little bit about that tradition of social justice, almost like where the universities come from, but then what it means today, because it sort of percolates through into what the students think, doesn't it?
It does. And our roots go back to the 19th century, the establishment of two of our founding colleges, Anglican College and a Catholic college, and then a third college in the 1960s. And they were, I suppose, quite pioneering in their day, educating women, but also offering higher education to women, which wasn't so common. But also then those women providing education for pupils who otherwise wouldn't have had those opportunities from disadvantaged backgrounds.
Am I right in saying, Claire, that it was those early days, those colleges were established by women themselves? And in a sense, I think that's incredible to think that they looked ahead so far as to, to take that step.
Certainly, the Notre Dame sisters who established what was Mount Pleasant
Mhm.
Training College and then became part of the university were really forward-looking and tough and driven. This was
Yeah.
their
Yeah.
passion, if you like, to provide an education, ensure that children from really poor backgrounds were able to access education and support and food and all the things that would help them have a better life in the future. And so, in a way, I think hope has its roots in that tradition, in that history, but really lives that out in a very
Mm.
contemporary way now. And you're right, we are one of the smaller universities in the country, but comprehensive in what we offer.
Mm.
That enables us to know our students well. We know our students by name. We know if they're not there for a few days and we get in touch to see how they're doing. Quite a few of our students can live on campus if they want to. And there's a great support system around students coming away from home for first time. But we also have quite a lot of students who commute in from the local area. About 45% of our students are from the Liverpool City region. And many of those choose to live at home because, of course, the challenge of the cost of living now is quite significant.
I think one of the other things that really came across to me was as I said, that sense of community, but also then how you work alongside other Liverpool universities, not least Liverpool John Moores University, and kind of looking outwards into the community. But I think really always being prepared to partner outside of the university to have an impact.
Partnership is really important to us. We see ourselves as a civic institution, as an anchor institution. We've been part of the Liverpool scene, if you like, since
Mm.
the 19th century in different guises and different forms. And so partnership with our sister universities, partnerships with the local businesses, with our local community around the campuses, all of that's really important, not only because we've got important, useful things to offer those organisations. We can support with business advice, with legal advice. We can, of course, help them to develop a workforce that is local and really committed to the region and has the skills that those businesses need, but also enables us to partner in terms of research and knowledge exchange so that we can improve. For example, we've been working with Sefton Council to develop multisensory rooms for pupils in schools and young people. And that's based on really sound research, but actually a really practical outlet and something that will really help communities develop. So lots of examples where we're partnering with universities, partnering with other organisations. And it's part of our strategic plan to be a good partner to work with, a partner who's responsive and who really listens to the needs of those local groups and local businesses. And we, for example, have a business advisory board for our business programs who tell us whether the curriculum is containing the things that they think are relevant and contemporary,
Mhm.
whether the students that they employ are coming out with the kind of skills that really help them as businesses to succeed. So it's really a two-way thing. We listen, we develop the kinds of support that those organisations need, and then they benefit from that as well. So that partnering in the city, that civic role, that engagement and being present in, for example, developing the city council strategy
Mhm.
at that high level is also something that I think is a role that universities can play very well in the local areas.
And I think it does really matter because increasingly, I think where policy making has shifted to is, I mean, it's beyond joined up policy. I think it's recognizing that you need system change. And therefore, all these parts of the system and universities are a key part, not least because, you know, politicians come and go. There's so much businesses come and go. There's so much leadership, but actually universities are the organizations in a region and particularly local communities that are there for the longer term. And so I think being able to play that role and do it well, do it authentically, has become more strategic. I think there was a time, maybe 10 years ago, if you'd said, oh, we're good at partnering, that, you know, some people might have been a bit sniffy, thought, well, that's nice. Actually, it turns out that being good at partnership and doing that kind of approach of a Liverpool Hope, I think is just absolutely overwhelmingly critical if you're going to be able to play your role and support, in this case, Liverpool City Region to be successful. And I think what's interesting is, you know, do you think, Claire, that you take some of that? Effectively, the reason it works is because you are able to provide a tailored approach to your students. It's student-centered. You're able to understand their very varied needs and then respond to that. Do you feel like the reason you're good at partnering is because you take that skill set and you can then apply it externally more broadly, equally successfully?
I think you're right there, Justine. There's something about the way we work as an
Mm.
organisation. We see that within Hope. We employ all of our staff here, so everybody is part of the community of Hope. You arrive here, perhaps yourself or as a business leader, and you're greeted by the security team who will take you where you want to be, who can talk about the university and what we do. And so it's kind of partnership then at all levels of the organisation. It also means that we can enable partner organisations to go straight to the people who can help them most directly. And I think that mirrors what we do with our students. Our students are known by the tutors, they're known by the wellbeing team, they know who to go to, but they also have people to go to, they have peers to go to, they have recently graduated students in our wellbeing team to go to, and that means that students don't always want to go and talk to a tutor about an issue that they're having. It means that they can go to who they feel comfortable with, and that means a more direct solution. And I think that's also true in the way we partner in the city. We can provide a more direct solution, and one in which we can get people around a table, listen to the needs, and then develop that in a slightly more bespoke and tailored way. I think we're getting that feedback actually from around the region that we are an organisation that's responsive. We are small, so we can't do everything. We have to think about carefully about what's going to work best for our partners and best for Hope. But we're quite open and transparent about that, and I think that also means that you can forge good relationships where you're transparent and straightforward, and that's part of the ethos of Hope as well.
Do you feel that wider world in the region is also learning increasingly how to work with Liverpool Hope, as you say, Claire, when to come to you to partner and when to think, actually, that's not their thing. Maybe we need to find a different partner. Do you feel, because I feel like part of this has been the wider ecosystem almost educating itself about who does what and, you know, where the value gets created for communities.
I think we're getting better also at articulating what our specialties are or what our areas of strength are, as I think often universities are thinking more carefully about that and how to articulate that so that those partnerships are forged on a basis of strengths and complementarity. What does each partner bring? And also, again, I think this is part of the ethos of Hope. We're looking for partnerships of equals so that we are both bringing something to that partnership and are complementary in what we bring, and therefore have much better outcomes. And I think that then reaches back into the conversation about social mobility. I was reading somewhere recently about how one of the important aspects of a diversity of workforce is that you can better fit your employee to the job that you have and bring diversity into those roles. And that makes for a more productive workforce, better fit a person to job, greater diversity of voice and thought. is really good for economic productivity. And in a region like the Northwest, that's going to be increasingly more important as we go forward. So thinking about the kinds of skills our students need to go into that workforce, knowing that many of our students here at Liverpool Hope, something like 54% are from the most deprived areas of the community, quintiles 1 and 2, but we want to stay and work in Liverpool. And then we can really support that workforce going forward for the region.
And it's interesting to talk about business because one of the steps you've taken comparatively recently is around apprenticeships and degree apprenticeships. And just be interesting to hear a little bit about how you've made that shift, Claire, and what it's meant for the university, the relationship with business, as you say, because, we're in a world of AI, even what business needs the skills is steadily changing. And I think it's never mattered more that universities can be responsive. But let's dig into the degree apprenticeship experience then and how you feel you've developed that.
So we will have our first cohort of degree apprenticeships starting this coming September. I'm really excited about that development because it builds on our ethos of providing educational opportunities for those who've faced barriers historically and directly feeds into our strategic aims to strengthen that delivery of lifelong learning and widening access and participation. I think what's interesting about degree apprenticeships is that by their very nature, they dismantle some of those traditional barriers to education because they allow learners, individuals to earn why they learn, to gain that qualification, but also really invaluable educational experience and professional experience while they're earning a salary. That can be really important for students from less privileged backgrounds who can't really afford to give up work in order to study, and are looking for really getting into the workplace as early as possible. So the degree apprenticeship, where a student is employed in a role by an employer and then released to the university a day a week, or however that works in terms of time, to engage with other students and with lecturers and reflect on the skills that they're picking up in the workplace is a really effective way of really busting some of those barriers around the need to earn and that anxiety that students might have about taking out a student loan and so on. So it offers for us another route into higher education and enables us to reach out to students we wouldn't otherwise be able to reach out to. So we've started very much with apprenticeships that focus on areas with purpose that are important to the region, the teacher apprenticeship. Mm-hmm. And interestingly, quite a lot of our cohort for 2025 start are currently teaching assistants. So working in the classrooms with local pupils who want to become teachers, who don't want to give up their job, who are really enjoying working with those students. And so they will continue to develop their skills and their personal development through becoming a teacher through the degree apprenticeship route. A couple of the other routes we're offering are youth work and social work. Again, really key to boost the workforce in those areas and to train individuals who can work with their own communities, who can work with some of the really challenging issues that communities are living with in Liverpool. And then physiotherapy, again, contributing to the National Health Service, the workforce there and in areas that are really needed in the region. Now that we've got a workforce plan for the NHS, we can look at how we can develop those apprenticeship routes further. So really, really excited about this development at Liverpool Hope.
And I think what's fascinating is that in a way, the way it's fitted in has been for roles that maybe are the ones that have lower salaries because they're in the public sector. And therefore, I think for many people going to university, they might think, well, I'm going to go into business and I'll take on the student debt because then I'll get, a progressively better salary over a career. Actually, I think for more vocational roles, the ones you talked about, that's not what the driver is. And though, for those roles, maybe particularly, plus, I'm from a working class background. I absolutely would have worried about money as a student today. You can kind of see how actually there's a match, isn't there? doing degree apprenticeships for these kinds of roles. And actually, it's a win-win. Not only do we bring just crucial talent into professions that are incredibly rewarding, and really important for the community, actually, the degree apprenticeship reduces a barrier to someone who might have otherwise thought, I just don't know that I can afford to go to university and then go into this kind of a career at the other side. And so it's sort of teasing out those different models, isn't it, really? I guess for the university. And does it make you work with the public sectors that you're serving in a different way? Do you feel that relationship is almost at even more strategic level because of entering that degree apprenticeship route that you're now in?
It really is, because we've co-designed those programs with the local employers. So we've gone out and said, look, what kinds of things perhaps are missing from the current offer? What kinds of things can you see that the workforce is going to need in the next 5 to 10 years? How can we build that into the curriculum that we offer when the students are here with us at the university? How can we build that into the work and the work-based learning that students are doing when they're actually on the job with you? Those students then have coaches, they have a range of support actually that students perhaps are, is quite different from the support that students on a straightforward traditional degree have, where they can reflect on bringing together both what they learn in the classroom and what they're learning on the job. But it's very much co-created with employers. Of course, one has to say employers have to have the jobs in order to offer the apprenticeships to get the apprentices. And we know that that's really challenging in the public sector at the moment. So as funding is released and employers are able to offer those roles, that apprenticeship provision can only grow, and we'll be working closely with those partners to develop those areas. But also, you think about our big local hospital, Alderhay, who we have a partnership with. They also want apprentices in their finance area and in their HR area, and thinking of these really big employers and breadth of offer that they can provide. We'll be talking to them in the future about other kinds of apprenticeships which we could offer, which would also help them to have the skilled workforce to enable those learners to develop the intellectual, practical skills, but also understand the ethos of the workplace all alongside one another.
And so it holds out the prospect of, just a widening out of that strategic partnership, in this case between the NHS and a particular part of the NHS and Liverpool Hope. And I think I was going to ask you, final couple of questions, but one of them was sort of what's next for Liverpool Hope, because it obviously plays such an important role, not just for the lives of students and the staff who are part of it, who make it what it is, in that wider community. So where do you see it going over the next 2, 3, 4 years, Claire? What's your vision for the next steps?
So to continue to offer a really outstanding student experience, and that needs continuous work. Every cohort of students has slightly different needs and requirements. We're now seeing just the tail end of the COVID generation and the impact that has had, and supporting students through that. One of the things that I'm really passionate about is that we're not only educating students who might be teachers or workers in the NHS, but engaged citizens who can articulate their views, listen respectfully to the views of others, but really make a difference to their communities in all sorts of ways. So that idea of the engaged and informed citizen is almost as important to me as whatever subject the students are studying. So to continue to do that, to offer that. I think also in terms of the research and knowledge exchange that we are engaging in, to really bring that together across disciplines, to address the questions and the problems and the challenges locally and nationally and internationally. And we'll be doing more of that, working with our partners in the city and in the region and beyond. We're also looking to increase our engagement internationally. And that's another thing that I'm really passionate about, is for students in the classroom to have conversations with people from around the world with different lived experiences, because that enriches their understanding of the world and their ability to articulate views and experiences. And so that's something that we'll be looking forward to in the future.
It's really exciting. And I love the idea of you being able to take almost some of that very personal experience you've had of that international pitch, I certainly, they always say that travel broadens the mind. And certainly as International Development Secretary, it was mind blowing. It gives you that, as you talked about, a sense of place in the community, but also beyond that, a sense of place in the world. And I think that's actually never been more important. My final question, I normally ask about advice, but I think because of the National Student Survey results, I'll ask a slightly different question. I think if your students, in a sense, with all the experience they're getting from being at Liverpool Hope, all of those messages, in a sense, that you're passing on to them to sort of take into a wider world. I think if they were giving advice to people listening to this about, how to pursue a career or those next steps you might want for yourself in your own life, what do you think they'd say to them?
I think they would say be brave and grasp the opportunities that come your way and make the most of them. I was talking to a student who graduated from Hope earlier in the year, mature student who'd had a family, come to education later in life, who felt that coming to a university like Hope, where her name was known, if she had issues and challenges, we would work round them, has just made such a difference to her life. Brought out of her things that were there already, but she wouldn't otherwise have had the opportunity to bring out. So think about the kind of environment that suits you well, but be brave and take the opportunities that come your way, because you never know what these might lead to.
Brilliant stuff. Professor Claire Ozanne, Vice-Chancellor of Liverpool Hope, it's been such a pleasure, such a brilliant discussion as well. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast today.
Thank you, Justine.